First of all, I would like to thank all those joining us here in Strasbourg and the over 200 individuals following us online. I'd now like to give the floor to Alexander Benhuber for 5 minutes. Over to you, Alexander.
Thank you much, Benoit. Thank you much, dear colleagues, and I think it's a great pleasure to have you all here on a very important day for our livestock sector, because we are in a parallel way. You see it on the screens in here in the meeting room. We are also discussing on our report, on our initiative report on sustainable livestock sector. And if you have followed the past hour, I think we are on a way to vote today on a really, really good report on a very broad perspective. And I think this is also one of our results of our intergroup in here, getting always a lot of input from experts. And I think that's something we can clearly see in this report. And I'm really happy, looking forward to have a really strong mandate for our upcoming work in the upcoming weeks, pointing out also the clear problems we have in our livestock sectors. We hear on a regular basis, also here in our intergroup meetings. So I think it's really, really a good and positive day, but also we are not finished today. It's just a starting point, because we also raise in our report a lot of concerns we have on different kind of topics, and one of these topics is what we are discussing today on the issue of how we can deploy circular feed and innovative feed additives to reduce emissions in monogastric livestock farming, which is a very urgent topic. We know all about the situation of NGOs, the pressure coming from different sectors on climate neutral production, and I think some people forgot that everything we do has some kind of impact to anything, environment and so on. But I think one thing is what we all need is something to eat and food. So we can reduce impact when we go on holidays, maybe going by bicycle, not by plane, and then we reduce emissions. But we all need something to eat, and we all need something to for living, and so one impact is coming from the livestock sector. But we are aware, and I'm very thankful to have a lot of experts here. We also have the possibilities, and a lot of research has been done in the past few years on this topic, to also has the possibility to reduce these emissions in a certain amount. And I'm really happy that we get a lot of information on these topics today on the special sector of monogastrics. But we are really looking forward to interesting discussion today, and you continue. Or can also introduce. Yeah, Benoit, you can introduce our first expert. So thank you much. Once again, a lot of people are here in the room joining online, and we are following our discussions right now. Thank you much.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Alexander. Allow me to say a few introductory words myself. I will pick up on what Alexander said about the report we will be voting on in plenary at noon today. This is a positive signal to the Commission to bolster livestock farming. Once again, we've had lively debate in our group on this subject. We've seen a shift since the last parliamentary term. We're seeing a realization of the benefits of livestock farming. Now, the difficulty with organising this meeting is that Ms. Mison from the Commission is following the debate but may not be available to speak at the time schedule, so we may have to rejig the agenda. Now, we're here today to talk about how circular feed and feed additive could be used to reduce emissions in monogastric livestock farming, such as pork and poultry. We champion livestock farming, sustainable livestock farming. That is a key goal in our group. As part of the European livestock strategy in future, there is a clear expectation that the sector would make a fair contribution to decarbonising the European economy while remaining highly competitive so that we can ensure decent income for farmers and attract future generations. Here today, we're going to focus on monogastric livestock farming. In this system, the problem is not really direct emissions, but rather animal feed, production, processing, and transport supply of the raw materials used to make feed accounts for the lion's share of the sector's carbon footprint. In other words, if we wish to reduce emissions in the pork and poultry sectors, we have to focus our efforts on feed. Innovation can and should be part of the equation here. One of the most promising avenues to explore is circular feed. In other words, using resources that are not specifically produced for animal feed, byproducts from the agri-food industry, agricultural waste, or indeed offloads from the circular economy. By integrating these resources into our production, we can reduce our reliance on crops solely dedicated to animal feed and import. It's a sea change. We shift from a linear model to a circular model where nothing is wasted and everything is used in the fullest possible extent. Feed additives are also an interesting avenue. For months, I have been putting pressure on the Commission to take a fresh look at the feed additive regulation. It is out of date and does not cover recent innovations. It is vital that we have the right regulations to foster innovation and ensure security and safety for consumers. We need to ensure consistency across European policies so that we can prevent contradictions between environmental, farming and economic goals set. Finally, let's not overlook the viewpoint of farmers and, of course, consumers. Today's meeting is designed to take those views on board, to shed light on what is at stake here, identify the driving force for change, and showcase examples of best practice, show how sustainable animal feed can help to reduce emissions from livestock farming. We're not just rethinking the type of feed we give to our animals, but rethinking the entire system in which those choices are made. Thank you. Ms. Mizon is not yet available, so I'll now give the floor to Christine Parry, Vice Chair of the Global Feed LCA Institute. She'll talk to us about the importance of high-quality data on the environmental impact of ingredients used to make animal feed. Madam Vice Chair, you have the floor now for 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for welcoming me today to speak to you about the value of environmental data in livestock feed production. As you know, my name's Christine Parry, and I actually have two roles. So my first role, my day job, is working as a product innovation expert for AB Agri, a global feed company, one of which probably you'll never have heard of, but is actually a sister company to Primark and Twinings. So we are well known in the global markets. I also have the privilege of being Vice Chair of GFLI, and that's, with my hat on today, how I'm going to speak to you. You guys in this room, this audience, will be well aware of the commitments that we have made in terms of the big picture to reduce environmental impact. Over the last decade, we have seen significant climate agreements being put in place, such as the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015, and more recently, the Global Methane Pledge. And this is increasingly important because it means that everyone needs to measure and report on the progress that they're making in each individual sector. And as you can see from the pie chart, in 2020, the baseline global emissions for agriculture was 17% of global CO2. This is pretty incredible. But as a feed industry, what does that actually mean for us? Oh, went too fast. The environmental contribution of animal feed, as Benoit said, is significant. The first pie chart that you see with the navy blue segments, that's 88% of a carbon footprint on a layer farm. So 88% of the farm's carbon footprint was contributed to animal feed. Depending on methodologies and how you do calculations, this can vary. The second study was done by Eggbase in 24 and shows 75% almost of the emissions on a farm being associated to animal feed. This is huge. If you look across, I know we're talking about monogastrics today, but even if you look across at the dairy industry, you can see that once you take away that segment, which is the blue segment, which is enteric methane production, the next largest contributor is feed, the orange segment there, and that's almost 25% of the carbon emissions. So as an industry, we really need to get our heads together, and make sure that we have good quality data so that we can report in a consistent way to our customers. Easy, right? No. What method do we need to use? Well, there are lots of different methods out there. The greenhouse gas protocol in Europe, we've got the product environmental footprints. We have industry really pushing for methods being used around science-based targets. As an industry, which one do we align to? Then which tool do we use? There are so many. In the UK, there are over 100 commercial tools focusing on climate carbon footprinting of farms and trying to measure climate change. And when you get to data sources, that's even worse. There are so many people out there with data. How do we as an industry know who we can trust? Do we work with Hestia, for example, using academic data, which may be incredibly accurate for the time, but by the time it's published is at least 3 or 4 years out of date? Do we take supplier data, such as Brenntag or Evonik? And if we do, how do we know that it's calculated using the same method? It's so difficult to compare apples with apples or eggs with eggs. So where does that leave the industry? And this is where GFLI come in. With my AB Agri hat on, I need reliable, consistent, high-quality data, which is verified by peer-reviewed scientists. We need it regularly updated. 5 years out of date is no good. The industry is changing so quickly, we need to be on top of our game. GFLI has a database of over 1,800 products, all calculated with exactly the same methodology, so we can directly compare feedstuffs that we're putting into the animal feed sector. They have strategic partnerships with life cycle assessment experts and work as an institute with industry to meet their requirements. They have been an absolute lifesaver for industry and really put credibility in this space. In terms of what that means for feed operations for a business like AB Agri, it means that we can lever that data in feed formulation very, very effectively. You can see here This is a graph of carbon footprint, global warming potential of common protein sources in animal feed. Very, very clearly you can see there is quite a large range of impact there. If we're sourcing soya for the monogastric sector, we can see very simply that if we want to take material from Argentina, it has a significantly higher for carbon footprint than soya from the US of A, for example. We can see that sunflower produced from Argentina and the Ukraine are very, very similar, but actually Ukraine has the edge. This helps us when we're sourcing materials and helps to keep our carbon footprint of our feed low, and therefore has an impact right across the supply chain. There's also opportunities to look outside of traditional materials. Wheat, for example, in monogastric diets could be replaced by bread, reducing that carbon footprint significantly. Soya can be used by replaced by rapeseed meal. NovaPro is a brand name that we have, but you can use rapeseed meal to replace that product and significantly reduce the carbon footprint. If we can start to think about some of these alternative raw materials, we can have a huge impact on what that means for the carbon footprint of feed. Here are some practical examples. So firstly, this is a commercial flock, a commercial broiler flock with a traditional wheat and soya diet. We have 3 treatments: a control, one where we've replaced soya by a small amount of feed beans, and the last bar is around improved management. So this is improved hygiene on farm. You can see that the improved hygiene reduces the carbon footprint reasonably, but actually swapping out only 10% of soya with field beans reduces the carbon footprint of that product, of the poultry product, by 6% almost. We can have a bigger impact potentially in monogastrics. We can concentrate out again with soya and wheat and replace that with co-products. We did many examples on farm where we've taken out these traditional materials and actually saved money for the farmer, because brewer's grains or brewer spent grains or processed bread is significantly cheaper than virgin products. It has also enabled over 20% reduction in the carbon footprint of the product that goes to market. These are significant wins and are not difficult to achieve on farm. The impact of data can also be seen in the supply chain. If any of you have been to the UK into supermarkets, you'll realise that traditionally brown eggs have always been present on our supermarket shelves. Access to good quality data on the feed going into the poultry sector has enabled people to compare directly the carbon footprint of brown eggs and white eggs. And you can see from this illustration here, the white bird is far more feed efficient, it lives longer, it produces more eggs and is therefore more environmentally friendly. We're actually seeing a significant change in supermarkets buying in the UK, and we are seeing more and more white eggs on the shelves in the UK supermarkets. I think across Europe we are incredibly hard on ourselves, and data allows us to make comparisons around sourcing from other geographies. This graph was pulled together by FAO and DEFRA and produced by AHDB. You can see that milk production in the UK has very, very similar outputs to those in Germany and France. Across Europe, there is a pretty level playing field. The only one that beats us there is the USA. However, if we wanted to offshore production of milk, for example, and we were considering buying it in from Brazil or India, this would be a significant detriment to the UK, to the European industry. If we could get the rest of the industry up to the same standard of production by feed efficiency and management and health and welfare, we could reduce the global numbers of cows to approximately a third of the global numbers that we have today. That is huge. I think we're also brave enough to use the data to show where we can make sensible decisions. So this graph shows the impact on climate of the European chicken commitment, which was put in place to improve the animal health and welfare of animals. What actually happened in reality, the reduced stocking density in poultry meant the birds ate more, they grew faster, they were bigger, and actually increased the carbon footprint of the output quite significantly. So sometimes, even though we want to do the right thing, there are unintended consequences. Having access to this data and the impact on carbon footprint has enabled large chains such as KFC, Nando's, to think again about their European chicken commitment. And not to say that they're not going to follow improved animal health and welfare, but it's around finding the right balance between carbon and efficiency. So as you can see, data is very, very powerful. And I just want to leave you with a few take-home messages. The pressure is on globally. It's not going to go away. Consistency in data and methodologies is absolutely key for our industry and is where GFLI plays a significant part. As a feed industry, we have made huge progress in reducing our environmental impact. If we compare ourselves to the food industry, we are light years ahead. Data is incredibly important right the way out through the supply chain to enable processors, supermarkets and farmers to make the right choice for their own organisations. And let's not forget, like I say, we beat ourselves up. EU production is one of the best in class in the world. I want to leave you on that positive point. Thank you very much for listening.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. We'll have the questions afterwards, I think. Yes. So now I'm going to give the floor to Brigitte Mison, who's going to try and answer the question. What are the expectations from the European strategy for livestock farming when it comes to removing carbon emissions from the sector? Mrs. Mison? There you are. Yes, you have the floor, madam. Yeah. Good morning, and thank you very much for taking part. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Let me take that out. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to be with you from the very start. Unfortunately, there was a misunderstanding, but I'm there, and that's the most important for sure. When we talk about decarbonization in livestock, for us it's essential that we begin by putting the issue into perspective. Livestock production is often discussed primarily through the lens of greenhouse gas emissions, but that view alone is incomplete. Livestock systems are multifunctional by nature. They provide not only food, but also livelihoods, cultural value, landscape management, and biodiversity support. Across Europe, as you know, they are deeply embedded in rural economies and communities. This broader perspective is reflected in the Commission's vision for agriculture and food, one that seeks sustainability both environmentally, economically, and socially. Equally important is the role of livestock in circularity. Animals convert resources that humans cannot directly consume, such as grass, crop residues, and byproducts, into high-quality protein. They contribute to nutrient cycling through manure, which supports soil fertility and reduces reliance on synthetic fertilizers. This circular function makes the assessment of emissions more complex than simple calculation per kilogram of output. We must consider the system as a whole, including what would otherwise be waste, and that livestock system return to the ecosystem. That said, acknowledging this complexity does not mean avoiding responsibility. On the contrary, it reinforces the need for targeted, effective action. Greenhouse gas emissions from livestock are significant, and reducing them is both necessary and achievable. The encouraging reality is that solutions exist, and you were just listening to a presentation on one of them. Many are being implemented today across Europe, delivering measurable results. The challenge ahead is to scale them up, adapt them to different regional contexts, and ensure that farmers are supported in adopting them. This is where the upcoming EU livestock strategy will play a crucial role. It will aim to accelerate the transition by promoting innovation, supporting investment, and creating a conducive policy framework to enable change on the ground. Let me briefly highlight a few examples of promising pathways. The first one, biogas. By converting manure and other organic materials into renewable energy, farms are significantly reducing methane emissions while contributing to energy independence. This is a clear win-win for both climate and farm economics. Second example, genetics. Advances in breeding are enabling the selection of animals that are more efficient, producing the same or more with lower emissions intensity. This is a long-term lever, of course. Third example, herd management. Improving animal health, fertility, longevity, reduces emissions per unit of product. And of course, as you know, healthier animals are more productive and require fewer resources over their lifetime. Fourth example, feeding strategies. Adjusting diets, optimized nutrient composition or use of feed additives can reduce enteric methane emissions. This is an area of rapid innovation and with strong potential for impact. Any key message? Yes. Decarbonization in livestock is not about a single solution, but about a combination of measures tailored to specific systems, and we know the diversity of those systems across Europe. It's about working with farmers, not working against farmers, working with farmers. And it's about recognizing that sustainability goes hand in hand with competitiveness and resilience. In conclusion, livestock has a role to play in Europe's climate transition. By building on its multifunctional and circular nature, and by scaling up solutions, and those are already within reach, we can move towards a more sustainable future for agriculture and for society as a whole. This would be my message to the Intergroup today. Many thanks for your attention.
Donc, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Ms. Mison. I'll now give the floor to Dr. Jan Veru Nøgaard from Aarhus University, who will talk to us about using feed additives to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, on this first slide, I show you 3 pics. You see the development of carbon footprint already for the 3 remaining decades has improved a lot. The green color pic maybe shouldn't be that green because we can make it much greener. And this also illustrates the data gap that the previous speaker addressed. It is pretty difficult to find new data. The Danish pig production is characterized by having unique access to data, but still we have old data to build on our conclusions. So the advancement so far has been due to genetics, management, feeding, and a great part of the feeding has been due to using feed additives. We have the majority carbon footprint by the use of feed, And next, we have from manure handling. Feed, you already heard that we can make a lot of changes in the feed. I have seen data from Danish diets that we can reduce it by half by a clever selection of feedstuffs already available. The manure handling can also be minimized to a great degree by using biogas and technologies in the barn and outside storage. Then we have the enteric methane, which is clearly also to be affected by using some different fiber substrates. So that we can reduce by half as well. And of course, these technologies are already being developed, but I think they could be implemented to a much higher degree. The large pig shows you just that the finishing pig is the one eating the most, so it's also generating the largest part of the footprint. But of course, that's also why we produce it for meat production. We are talking about feed utilization as a main parameter for carbon footprint of pigs. You have the two pigs on this slide. They are growing the same, but they eat differently. So if we have a pig eating more than another pig, the one eating the most would have a higher excretion of nutrients because they are not utilized for growth by the pig. You can see the graph. The graph is showing the reduction in or the improvement in feed conversion ratio for the last 3 decades, and also the yellow curve is showing the growth of the pigs. It is extrapolated until 2030, but I'm pretty sure that we will reach those numbers in very short time. So this is the main driver for the improvements that has been going on so far, and of course we need to continue this work. When we are talking about sustainable feedstuffs, the major challenge is that we will often face a reduced feed conversion ratio. And that is because the circular feedstuffs often contain more fiber, more ashes, and that is reducing digestibility of the animals, leading to higher nutrient excretions and also higher methane emissions from the pigs. Circular local feeds, they often also lack some nutrients. Their nutrient profile is not optimal for the animal growth, so that's why we also need to supplement with specific nutrients, such as amino acids. And if we don't, we will have extraordinary environmental impact. If we are looking into European self-sufficiency, I think we could do much better. At the moment, we are relying on soy from South America, and by far most additives, if not all amino acids, are imported from Asia. And that's a huge challenge because without the feed additives from Asia, we cannot have a modern pig production or poultry production in Europe. We can use our own local feedstuffs if we cannot get access to the soybean from South America, but then we would need even more feed additives. So the feed additives, they have been a major driver in reductions of nitrogen and phosphorus losses to the environment. This figure shows you the more than 50% reduction we have seen in the Danish pig production since the last 4 decades. And the use of amino acids has been main responsible for the reductions in nitrogen emissions, and the use of phytase is the main responsible for the more efficient use of phosphorus. So this work is this work will continue in the future, and we still see improvements. Just one slide on the amino acids. If we consider the nutrition of the animals, they would require some specific amino acids. 20 amino acids are essential for growth, and some are limiting in the diets. If they are limiting in the diets, the animals cannot utilize the protein in the diets, and they will have an excess of nitrogen excretion. So we can supplement with those limiting amino acids to reduce the crude protein in the diets and to minimize nitrogen excretion. So this is the way we optimize diets for pigs and poultry. So this is very essential. So the other example on phosphorus, the previous presenter addressed rapeseed meal, rapeseed cake as a potential future European local feedstuff to replace soy. We have a special issue using or challenged by using rapeseed cake and rapeseed meal in the monogastric animals, and that's because the rapeseed contains some high concentrations of fibers, and they also have a very large proportion of the phosphorus locked by phytic acid. So these are data that we just did an experiment at my university where we had the rapeseed cake with or without the phytase, and you clearly see that the fecal excretion of phosphorus is reduced a lot when you include the phytase, and also the absorption is included. Digestibility of phosphorus is the key for phosphorus excretion, and that is very low in rapeseed cake compared to soybean meal, but we can mitigate at least a part of it by using feed additives. And we also depend on a lot of other types of feed additives. We use enzymes for degrading carbohydrates, the fibers that can not be utilized or degraded by the animals themselves. We use a lot of organic acids to control gut health. We use a lot of probiotics, bacteria, fungi, yeast, to supplement the diet to improve animal health. And of course, we also include minerals and vitamins for making the animals grow better. So I would think in a typical pig and poultry diet, we would include maybe, besides the minerals and vitamins, I guess we would often include maybe 10 or 15 different feed additives. I just show you this slide, which is an example of a new, unique, but still small research experiment that we are doing at the moment. It's funded by national funding and in collaboration with a large international biotech company. So when we are trying to develop new feed additives, we are looking into the biological parameters. We are looking at the pigs. We are taking blood samples. We are taking digestibility or samples from the digester to see where do we see the limits of nutrient utilization. So then we try to see if those limiting factors can be addressed by developing a feed additive, and then the work begins. Then the company, in this case, would have maybe 6 or 10 years work ahead by developing the feed additives. Of course, this is a very laborious and costly process. So this project is rather unique. We don't have a lot. We don't have a lot of development on feed additives in Europe, and that's maybe a drawback. Because on my last slide, I claimed that the use of feed additives is not just optional, it's really mandatory for the European livestock industry to continue to having an efficient production and also to be a part of the green transitions where we can use the local feedstuffs and reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, methane emissions. So, yeah, thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for that very clear presentation. Yes, it's given us a lot of food for thought. I now pass the hand over to Sigrid Paulin, representing the European Association of Former Foodstuff Processors. She's going to talk to us about a specific example of processing former foodstuffs as an example of circular feed for reducing greenhouse gas emissions connected with the production of animal feed. You have 10 minutes, madam. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk here today in the European Parliament in Strasbourg. So I'm Sigrid Paulin, representing EFPA, the European Former Foodstuffs Processors Association, as well as Strotec, a company, a plant, specialized in the transformation of former foodstuff into new high-energy qualitative feed ingredients, demonstrating with Strotec what our sector and our activities are already doing on industrial scale today. So on this slide, I want to mention that in Europe already we transform over millions and millions of former foodstuff in high ingredients that are used in the feeds. With Strotec, we transform yearly 250,000 tons of this kind of products with our plants based in Belgium and in France, and we are opening now a new plant in Poland, allowing us to increase these volumes. We can do this, we realize this, our whole sector works together with food companies, in our case 450 food producing companies. We work together with 250 feed compounders, companies that are convinced of the value of our circular product and that integrate these products in their feed. In our plants, we work with the products coming from food-producing companies that are not commercialized. These products are not used for human consumption. We will transform with an industrial process and a controlled process. This is why we liked to add these pictures to show you that is really an industry behind this transformation. We transform this form of foodstuff into new ingredients, circular ingredients that will be used in feed for several applications. We use circular ingredients for the pig feed, but as well also for ruminants, for poultry, and so on. So important to know that companies as Strotec are certified companies using strict quality control systems, and they work in full compliance with the EU feed regulation. These pictures show examples of kind of products that we work with daily. So this can be products coming from industrial bakeries like bread, from biscuit producing companies like biscuits, chocolate, chips, snacks producing companies. These products will not be commercialized or used for human food because of logistical reasons, because of practical reasons, but they still maintain a high value and high nutritional value, so they are worth it a lot still. These products are safe, they are fully traceable, and rich on energy. I think I have a small problem with my... Yes. In Europe, we import a lot of raw materials and crops to make food or to make feed. Our sector has a complementary approach. Instead of saying we use all the primary raw materials to make feed, we believe that it's also important to focus on the food losses from food companies and on the products from the retail, the non-sold breads day X that can be collected. These products can be transformed in an industrial and controlled way, a transformation that includes quality control, unpacking, mixing and formulation, a thermal treatment, and this will give us then a final circular ingredient that will be used in the feed and in the feed industry. And by doing this, we reduce the need to import primary raw materials. We focus on local resources, local losses from the food industry. We give them a very good application, and we keep the agriculture the possibility to focus on the food production. Here we see we compare conventional feed composition with a feed composition where we use also the circular ingredient. You can notice that quite some volume of the primary raw materials can be replaced by circular ingredients while we maintain a balanced and safe feed composition. We can mention that there is between 5 and 40% of circular products that can be used and is used in the industry already, depending the application of the products. And this slide shows us the complete environmental impact of our activity, the activity of our sector, calculated in the volumes we produce with Trotec. So you can see that Trotec is transforming 250,000 tons of former foodstuff into 22,000 tons of new circular ingredients. And this helps us to achieve also the targets of the European Union to reduce the food waste with 50% by 2030. At the same time, we will lower the carbon footprint of the feed. We talked about the GFLI database. Our circular products are already included with the numbers in the GFLI database, and we can say that we are creating approximately 122 kilograms of CO2 per ton circular product. If we compare this number with the products that we can replace, like the imported soy also, the palm oil, and so on, we have a number of 700 kilograms of CO2. So what we mentioned before, that feed is really having a big influence on the carbon footprint. We can confirm this, and there are also solutions for this. And by using the circular ingredients instead of primary ingredients, we can deliberate agriculture surface. We will use less water, less fertilizer, less pesticides, so a very global positive impact for us all. I'm struggling sometimes a little bit. Sorry, wait, this was too fast now. That's, what is our conclusion? Some takeaways that we find very important to stress. That we do already a very nice job in Europe, that our former foodstuff processors are really industrial plants, knowing very well what they are doing, working in full compliance with the legislation, that the amounts that are integrated are very important amounts. We don't talk about small amounts, it's our huge quantities that are integrated already in the feed. And that together, because circularity is together with the food producing companies, the processors, And the feed compounders, we realize a very nice thing. We use local resources that otherwise wouldn't find the best applications, and we keep land free for other purposes, human purposes. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madame Pauline. So we can see that there are these aims towards a decarbonisation that can be achieved in different ways. Germain Dessert is here, a breeder and farmer concerned by all these measures. That's good to see him here. And we do have time for questions now. Questions from the room. We haven't overrun at all. We've got time left, which is quite unusual. So I'll hand over straight away to my colleague.
Very interesting presentations and a few different questions. So the first one to Mr. Pauline was, what are the main reasons or what are the main regulations you are struggling? Because I can imagine it's not very easy to get from animal foodstuff to feed stuff with all this kind of legislations. So would you need some help at this point? Maybe I make all these questions and the other one? Oh, I just have some other questions. Maybe can answer afterwards. So my other question says, when we talk about saving emissions for, we're talking today about monogastric, which is the animal where we have the highest potential to save emissions. And my third question is, today we are focusing very much on nutrition, but also in mind and also knowing it from other studies, we are knowing when we talk about the whole picture of production, we know about the animal welfare standards. So if you put, for example, pigs on straw, they have even more emissions due to nitrogen emissions and so on. So where do you see this whole picture? Mr. Professor, do you have any specific data on that? Also comparing the animal welfare standards, where we know different animal welfare standards, especially, for example, pigs on straw, as far as I know, have much more emissions in a total system. So maybe you can give us also a bit the combinations of these things, nutrition and also animal welfare standards, where you see the step forward for our sectors.
Thank you for the question. What we see, so we are very practical people, yes? What we see is that the legislation is not always easy to understand. So we work with food-producing companies that are used to have also their certification on their production, BRC, EFS, and so on. For us, the outcoming of the production, so the food losses, they have other requirements, they need other certifications. Sometimes for them, not always understandable why this is the case and this is not allowed. There is also a difference of legislation when a bread contains milk, butter, or milk, butter, and eggs, or not. What we are allowed to transform and not anymore allowed to transform can depend on this. So it's not easy. We decided to give a full help to these companies. So before we start the collaboration, we go together with them, with their quality people, and we discuss what is allowed, what is not allowed. But it happens that we have topics that even for us are not logic to explain. So I always like to invite everybody to see once in reality what we are doing, and there we can show you a lot of topics that could be interested to discuss.
Monsieur, une question.
You have a question, I believe, sir?
Thank you. I want to also thank to all the panelists in the beginning just for this interesting presentation. It was very expertise in some ways, but definitely I think it's one very important topic. I have two questions and maybe one more comment. I think that this definitely transition towards this circular feed and specific feed additives is a crucial step, definitely, for decarbonization. But I'm coming from Croatia, and in Croatia we have dominated the small and medium-sized family farms. So maybe question, how can we ensure that these new sustainable feed alternatives are and additives remain affordable and accessible also for the small farmers without creating some competitive disadvantages against the large industrial farms? And the second question, processing this former foodstuff into safe animal feed requires significant, definitely, logistical and processing infrastructure. So also for the maybe the smaller member states, this specific circular infrastructure might not be highly developed yet. So what kind of EU support can be provided just to build these local capacities and supply chains for circular feed? And maybe the last, more maybe comment. Definitely, I think that this high-quality life cycle assessment data is definitely essential. But I think that the farmers are already very overwhelmed with the paperwork. We are all agree with this here, and I think that the Commission just needs to integrate this data requirements into the new CAP in the way that will maybe some kind of financially intensiveness farmers to use this low carbon feed without adding on their administrative burden. Thank you.
Vous souhaitez faire un commentaire?
Any comments?
Yeah, well, I would like to comment on this because I don't see any conflict of using advanced feeding technologies and economy. Of course, if you have some very small-scale farmers, they should have some. They should have somebody to supply the diets because you cannot mix those diets yourself. I think this would be pretty common approach in all European countries to buy in the diets. A lot of the feed additives are driven also by making the diet costs less. So then we are having an extra benefit by also reducing environmental impact. And it's not more than, I guess, well, you would know as well, 5-8 years ago, we start discussing doing the calculations on carbon footprint. And these feed additives that we already used, because it would make the production more efficient, is having also a great impact. So I think you can get both. So, yeah.
Merci.
Thank you, Benoit. Good morning to you all. I apologize for not being in attendance for all the presentations. I have no doubt as to the interest of your presentations and the added value they offer to livestock farming in Europe. This was part of the question, indeed, we'll be addressing in plenary, rather lively debate in that connection. Can I ask about your dealings with the Commission? We don't get the impression that the Commission is coming forward with proposals on livestock farming. It is seeking powers to offer added value to farmers. So how can we help you to facilitate a better relationship with the Commission so that the Commission then comes to Parliament with proposals that we don't have to completely overhaul so that we can protect livestock farmers. I know that DG Agri tries to produce good proposals, but it's not just DG Agri that comes up with legislation that affects European farmers. We need common sense here. So what relationship do you have with the Commission and how could we help you?
Voilà, oui, c'est une bonne question.
Now, Jeremy, it is true that we are looking for information from the field to offer fresh avenues to explore. Now, on additives, we have specific regulations that I think we need to review. The approval procedures for these additives are rather lengthy. The administrative burden is protracted compared to what you have in other continents. Do you have any specific examples of amendments to legislation in this regard? So any amendments to current legislation? Thank you.
Madame, excusez-moi, je salue.
I was just bidding farewell to my colleague. He has to leave for a parallel event. That's why you have MEPs coming and going. A number of MEPs sent in apologies because they had other debates this morning. Over to you. Yes, we have the additive regulation, part of the food and safety omnibus, and perhaps we could look at simplifying the approval procedure for additives in this connection. That would make it easier to bring them to the market. That's something we could look at.
Est-il vrai que...
Is it true that if you look at other continents, companies on those other continents have fewer constraints and less regulation to grapple with?
Oui, oui, tout à fait.
Yes, absolutely. But there are companies here that could answer that question. I'm not representing an additive business here. There are others who could answer that question better. Our colleagues can answer. I'm Nicolas from FIFAC. We have had feedback from companies. They focus on other markets rather than Europe because it is less expensive and quicker to get approval. The renewal procedure is protracted too. You have to get audited. You have to reassess the additive. No change in the scientific evidence, but a lengthy and protracted renewal approval procedure. And so some of them don't seek renewal. So these additives are then no longer available to European livestock farmers. That erodes our competitiveness. And it bolsters the competitive edge that you see elsewhere amongst our rivals. We would like to see positive developments in connection with the omnibus. Perhaps our colleagues from other sources might add more information.
Ms. Jörg Seifert, I'm the Secretary General of FEFANA, the EU Association of Specialty Feed Ingredients and their Mixtures. And I would like to bring two things together that we heard. In your introduction, you emphasized that there is a need to modernize the feed additive regulation. And this is something we heard now in several of the comments made. In the presentation of Professor Nørgaard, he gave us an example of phytase. Phytase, just to remind you, is an enzyme which makes the phosphorus more bioavailable. So it improves the digestion of the animal of the feed. At the same time, what it does, it reduces the emission of phosphorus into the environment. So two very positive effects. In the current setup of the feed additive regulation, we have functional groups. And the functional group for a phytase would be a digestibility enhancer, because that's what a phytase does. The secondary effect of reducing environmental impact is not possible for the industry to claim. And this has to do with the setup of the feed additive regulation. So what we've been asking, by the way, together with 5 other major EU associations, Copa Cogeca representing the farmers, FEAP representing the aquaculture producers, Animal Health Europe representing the veterinary medicinal producers, FEFAC, the European Compound Feed Association, and also FEDIAF, which is the European Pet Food Association. We have defined 6 key demands to the European Commission for modernizing this feed additive regulation. We have done this 2 years ago. Now, what we see in the omnibus, what it addresses is one of these key demands to a full extent, which is to abolish the renewal requirement. And the second one, which is the introduction of digital labeling, where we see there's still room to be improved, but it can be improved because the way the proposal is made. The other demands have not been addressed. And this example with phytase, I think, underlines the need. And by the way, we are not looking here at, a magic solution, because the solution exists. In the EU feed legislation, there's a regulation 767 on feed marketing. That regulation allows for claims to be made for compound feed and also for pet food. So it's possible for compound feed, but it's not possible for feed additives. So there's a mismatch here, there's a misalignment. So we think that it is really needed that the Commission addresses these key demands, which again is not just our industry, it's the entire feed chain, and this could be a real game changer for our industry. Thank you.
Oui, mais
As the individual in charge of reform of the next Food and Feed Omnibus, we'll try to strive for simplification, come up with solutions along those lines. Any other questions from the floor?
Bonjour to good morning. My name is Mark Titterington. I'm with the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. I've listened with great interest to the presentations we've had this morning. They follow a similar meeting that we had in Brussels at our annual conference a couple of weeks ago, looking at different ideas, different solutions. Amino acid balancing was one of them in terms of how we improve the sustainability of the livestock sector. My question really to the panelists, and indeed maybe to Jörg as well, what do we need to do to bring together not just regulatory enablement, but greater investment, greater research, and make all these things work systematically to drive forward the transition that Brigitte referred to in her presentation? And maybe a question to you directly, Mr. Chairman. When you look at the livestock strategy that is emerging from the Commission, how confident are you that it will deliver against the objectives that are set out? Because this is a real opportunity for us, and the proof will be in the pudding, I suppose, as we say in English, as to whether it delivers what we need in the livestock sector. Thank you.
I'll answer that question, then pass the floor to Brigitte. That's a sensitive point. Will the livestock strategy deliver on its objective? I hope the text that we vote on at noon today will send out a strong signal to the sector. This intergroup is clear evidence that there is a will to bolster the sector, ensure its sustainability. We want to move with scientific evidence, take on board technological progress. Now, as to whether the recent livestock strategy will deliver on those objectives, I'm not Mystic Meg. I can't predict the future. I'll do everything within my power to facilitate the legislative process and ensure that the strategy delivers on those objectives. Perhaps my colleagues here at the top table would like to respond to the questions raised.
I would like to add that, and talking for our sector then, transforming the former foodstuff, that it is important that we have the opportunity also to communicate and to say already that we are doing a great job, even if I mention it myself. Also to stress that it's industrial approach, that it is because these products that come out of our plants, these are high quality products coming from local resources, but we don't lower the quality expectations. At least they are at same quality, and for us we even want to produce better products than standard products. So we have a great ambition in our sector. EFPA has all members that are dedicated, and it's important that we give this message and that these products become standard, obvious, and to come back also, the person left, but also for faffeurs, for farmers, these products are there available. This is not only a product for the feed compound industry, it's available for everybody producing feed for his animals. So it's an open product with many advantages, and we have to communicate in a strong way. Also the perception of producing feed, it's thanks to this animal that we can keep these food products in the food chain. Otherwise they would disappear out of the food chain. So this animal is doing a great job. We are grateful. So this is our information.
Can I just echo some of the conversations that have been going on around feed additives? So as AB Agri, we have a feed additive business called AB Vista, and I can absolutely say for certain that we have deliberately avoided Europe because of the complicated and lengthy and costly registration process. We would first launch our products in the US, China, where it's far easier to get the products through the regulatory hurdles, and then think about Europe as a secondary market. So, in terms of evidence, it's not just what the people in the audience have been saying here. It's actually happening, and if we can get some of those products more easily into Europe, then it will move us forward. It will become commonplace to use these materials. As the professor was saying, it should be in every diet, making everyone more efficient and moving the industry on, innovating in the correct way.
I think we should also acknowledge that there's a lot of crap coming in from or being developed in Asia, non-functional feed additives, and that we don't like. So some kind of process for having the efficient feed additives would of course be needed, and I think that part of the work of developing feed additives, of showing the efficacy of feed additives, is of course important. I think it's quite obvious while working with small companies, even large companies, and also in academia, it is really difficult for people to get hold on the legislation and the limitations. So representing a university, maybe a master in feed additives, in feed and food safety in Europe would be nice. So we would have some competences to develop the feedstuffs for the future. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. You'd like to react, would you? Yes, go ahead.
Question to Christine Perry. Regarding your experience, we, as Eurofac and FEFAC, we fully support science-based action to see what is our impact on environment, and it's science-based. But on business, do you feel some expectation from retailers or from milk industry to get those data, and are they able to give you some value some additional value to when you improve your environmental impact? Because we try to produce a lot of robust data, and GFLI is something really square, and it's not coming from. We really give much value to that, but we have a hard time to find a business model to improve our environmental impact. So happy to share your experience.
Yes, come across the same thing internally within our business, and we are looking at whether we can make improvement claims from additives as part of Scope 4. So, I know that everyone's focused in Scope 1, 2 and 3 at the moment, but Scope 4 does allow you to take into account any improvements that you make in your products. So that's where we've been looking at, as a business, that's where we've been looking to claim those improvements from our products, because you're absolutely right. There is significant environmental benefit from putting some of these additives into animal feed. In terms of GFLI data, we would love more data from the feed additives sector in the GFLI database, but it's a highly competitive area. And the feed additive sector seem to be slightly different to the feed sector in how much they want to share externally, potentially because of the ways that maybe because the environmental impact can't be claimed. I'm not sure, but there does seem to be a reluctance for the feed additives industry to come forward and engage with the GFLI on a group basis. On an individual basis, it seems fine. But on a group basis, it's much more difficult.
Voilà. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres?
Are there any other comments? If not, we'll close the session. I felt it was very positive, very interesting, and I think that it shows that the sector, the industry, and farmers and European institutions want to work together. They want to pull together, working for a more sustainable and more efficient farming and food industry. And yes, sometimes, we have fewer people in the room and more online. That's how it works at the European Parliament. It does happen, yes. And we'll be having another meeting. It's on the 24th of June. No, the 21st of May. I do apologise. I got the date wrong. So 21st of May and then the 24th of June, actually. So they will be also very interesting, fascinating meetings. Thank you very much again. And if you're spending the weekend here in Strasbourg, do enjoy your time in the city. Thank you.